some of the, thank you, Mr. Veronica, to talk through some of the specifics about coming back to the high school, either in person through our hybrid learning model, or engaging as a remote learner for those of you that might be opting for full remote instruction. So I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves, and then we've got some just some information to share just so we're all on the same page. And then we have a Q&A box. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom webinar screen, there's a chat window, but we'd rather you not put your questions in chat. They're harder to track that way, honestly. But if you can put them in the Q&A box, we'll either type a response for you, or we'll make sure that we answer your question live, or follow up with you, maybe even individually, depending on the nature of your question. Just the panelists can see your questions. That's how it's set up, right, Mr. D? Yes, perfect. So, so don't worry. All questions, we really want to make sure that you're feeling good about coming back and reopening and having your questions answered. That's really what we're here for. So, Mr. DeVeronica introduced himself, but I don't know, Mr. DeVeronica, you want to go through it again?
Sure. You'll see Mr. Dan Fullerton, former teacher extraordinaire, now our director of technology. Hi, Dan.
Hi, folks.
One of our great teachers, Erin Quintero, right? Hi, Erin. Mrs. Finter, and then that masked woman, there she is. It's about to begin her second year as principal. It's Alicia Zip McLaughlin. Hi, Alicia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. So, Mr. DeVeronica, are you going to pop up the other PowerPoint, please?
Sure.
Thank you. All right. So we know that last spring, from March 16th or so through the end of the school year, was really very different, right? And we went from being a brick and mortar institution where you came to school every day to remote instruction on a dime, and our teachers and staff did a wonderful job, and you all rose to the challenge very well. To adapt to that changing environment. But we have to be clear, what we did in the spring really was a response to a crisis, right? A global pandemic that we're still dealing with and still working through some of the guidance and parameters. So, you might have experienced those teacher check-in Zoom calls, might have been office hours, a little more flexible. If you didn't need the help, you didn't have to check in. Maybe you got some flexibility from your teachers around what some of those essential assignments were. Maybe it was more practice-based if you were getting ready for an AP, maybe there was some more frequent interactions with your teachers. There wasn't really any requirements around daily attendance. Things were pared down to those essentials, and teachers did their best to get resources and materials into your hands. You probably all talked with us a bit at some point about hold harmless and what that means, and are you going to pass or fail or get an incomplete. There weren't final exams, rather, there weren't unit tests. And maybe you had to kind of scramble to come in at one point during the spring to get hard copy materials or get resources that you might have needed. Starting the school year this year, it really turns the page to a true hybrid learning environment where there's more expectations back on the plate for you. Teachers are going to be leading you through instruction. There's going to be accountability in terms of attendance. You have to attend every day, and there'll be mechanisms when you're not in person to do that. If you're in the hybrid model, you'll be coming in 2 days a week and then learning virtually at home, independently, in maybe even asynchronous ways, not real time with everyone else on those other days. The instructional focus will be there. We have to maintain those grade level standards and get you ready for whatever the end of the year looks like. We have not heard any guidance from New York State around state assessments. So until we hear otherwise, it is operating with those Regents exams, AP exams, SATs, with all of those dual enrollment opportunities in mind, making sure that you're ready for that. There will be numeric grades. There's no more hold harmless. and we have to be very clear around the criteria that you'll be used to be assessed with. There'll be assessments. Some you might have to take tests online, and there'll be some ways to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and operating with academic integrity, and your teachers are there to support you and help you and provide the technical know-how you'll need to be able to access those. Schoology is our main platform. It is our classroom outside of the classroom. And so teachers have been working hard all summer and will continue that work until the opening to get those learning spaces ready for you. And that really will be a central point. Parents are going to have access to Schoology too. They're not going to be able to see other students' work, but they'll be able to see yours and check in on your progress, check in on what those assignments are, and give you that support from your home base. So it's gonna feel and look different for you, but hopefully you'll still feel that support and structure and care from all of the staff here at the high school and across the district. So I'm gonna peek at the questions, see if there's any as I'm talking. I know we're gonna come to the cafeteria question and the dismissal arrivals, some of the EMCC. Yep, so some of those questions, some of your questions so far are going to be covered as Ms. Zip goes through some of the hybrid model expectations and some of the remote learning expectations. So we'll be able, I'm confident we'll be able to get those questions answered, and we may chime in with some additional information for you too. So I'm going to turn it over to Principal McLaughlin to kind of go through what are these two models and how's that going to feel for you. Take it away.
Thank you, Mrs. Finter. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so hybrid model, many of you have already heard about, and Mrs. Finter just talked a little bit about that, where you are in person 2 days a week and virtual 3 days a week for most of the students. So we've divided our student body into two cohorts. There's a blue cohort and there's a gold cohort. So as you can see on here, if generally speaking, for a general rule, if your last name starts with an A through LAN, you are projected to attend school at IHS on Mondays and Thursdays in person as part of the blue cohort, which would mean on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you would be engaging with learning remotely at home. On the gold cohort days, students with last names Linder through Z will attend classes on campus Tuesdays and Fridays, with their virtual or remote learning occurring Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You will see a couple of our self-contained options that are expected to be on campus more than those 2 days. And we'll answer any questions that folks have around that. But basically, our students in our self-contained 12 1-to-4 option will be on campus all 5 days. And students who are in our 8-1-1 or 15-to-1 programs will be on campus 4 days a week. So you would be attending Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with a day of remote on Wednesday. On those Wednesdays, you'll see peak support and office hours. So the office hours allow you additional time to pop in. We will advertise the department times and names for you, but you'll be able to pop in to ask any questions that you might have, or a quick just reminder of a process or a question that you have in order to complete the rest of your work independently. You will also continue to have those opportunities to engage with your teachers through Schoology, through your Schoology courses. You will continue to be able to access them via email. Many folks are going to continue to have that class remind for you. So I don't want you to think that Wednesday is the only time that you can seek extra support from your teachers. It's just another layer of opportunity for you on those Wednesdays. In our peak support, this is actually one piece that we heard from students and families during one of the thought exchanges and some of our survey results, that students started to feel more connected to adults in the building and noticed a different way that they were supported and had opportunities just to talk about anything. Heavy, not heavy, but just to try to get to know their classmates and their teachers in a different way. And so these peak groups on Wednesday, it'll be a half hour of your Wednesday that is required because it's our mechanism to take attendance. But during that time, not only is this building in another group of students that you may not know and be able to develop some friendships. All of this will be virtually, but it gives you a built-in study group. If you're having problems with homework or you have a question and you want to ask another person if they can help you through that, it gives you 2 adults in the building and about 8 other students that you can get to know to strengthen our larger IHS community. And it's a way for you to stay connected in general with any questions or fun stories that you want to share. So there'll be a lot more information coming out about the peak support groups that are coming up and the office hours. I'm going to switch a little bit to the health screenings. Because we are still in a global pandemic, health and safety is absolutely a priority for us. So you and your families will receive information about the screening that we need you to do at home before you come to school. And so basically, it's just a simple, like a safety self-check. Very similar, if any of you have been to the doctor or the dentist lately, very similar to those types of questions, just asking if you've had a fever, if you've had a cough, if you have been in contact with anyone who has been quarantined or who has COVID. Have you taken your temperature this morning? Just really quick, it'll all be on an app. You'll be able to log in to show us that you've done that first. Then when you come to school, we are also going to have a touchless temperature taken for each person as they're entering. It's another way for us to make sure that you have your masks on while you're entering the building. And if you left the house and forgot your mask, it'll be the point where we're able to provide one for you so that you can enter our environment still keeping yourself safe as well as other folks. So yes, we do have some staggered times for arrival and dismissal. We are trying to open the doors at 2 distinct times. Grade levels 9 and 10, or freshman and sophomore, are asked to enter at 7:45, and our juniors and seniors are asked to enter around 8 a.m. The reason that we're staggering those arrivals, and I'll talk to the dismissals in a second, is again, we are trying to spread out the concentration and the number of students on campus at one point, which is one of the recommendations from New York State and from the CDC to make sure that we are planning for health and safety for all. So we are going to have minimally 2 lines at the main entrance. There may be a 3rd line that we split out either to exit 2 or 7. 2 is at the end of that art hallway right in the front of the building, and 7 is at the end of the business hallway, also in the front of the building. So if you're facing IHS, the 2 doors on the left and right of the building in the front. We will have lots of signs provisioned. I will create a welcome back video to walk you through what that's actually going to look like once the signs are up, so that you can experience via video what that process will look like as you enter the building. Again, our dismissals are also staggered to try to control the number of students in any one area for safety. So our juniors and seniors will be dismissed at 2:45, and our freshmen and sophomores will be dismissed at 3. Right now, we are unable to have anyone remaining after school. So we are on pause for any of our after school library hours. We currently do not have sports running. We are still working through what clubs and activities would look like. So I will share more with you around those, but many of them will be a virtual option, at least to get us started. Next slide, please. So again, for your in-person instruction, whether you're coming on that blue cohort section or gold cohort section, we are going to run the 9-period schedule. We're going to run our A and B schedule. So you still get the benefits of the comprehensive high school. You still get to explore all of the electives and pathways and programs that you've selected, including EMCC. I know that was a question out there. So I will answer the EMCC question once I work through this slide and kind of back up a bit for that. So while you are here on campus, we are asking that you are following some of our new guidelines. Again, in the video, we'll show you what the hallways, the hallway markers look like, the stairwell markers, our cafeteria. You will know which of our hallways are going to, our stairways, which ones are going to be up or down. In the halls, we will have lots of poly spots out there so you know what the 6 feet markers are. And then even for the stairs, we're going to have as much visual cueing for you as possible to try to keep you that 6 feet apart as you're transitioning. We also are going to mark off so that you are with your mask on, staying to the right of the hall, and we'll show you what that looks like in that welcome back video. On your remote days, we are going to give more information, but you will have to record in that you engaged with your work that day. We will be giving you some instructions on how to use the portal on your own device to do that. Parents and students would be able to do that, so more information to come. But while you are on your remote learning days or your asynchronous days, your teachers will have sent in their Schoology courses some of the videos or that either they recorded or they have found for you to learn about a particular segment of a concept or a topic, and then they're going to give you the same type of independent work that you might have if you were on campus, but ways for you to engage with that material and maybe even with one another through, I know a lot of you are used to those discussion boards that Schoology put out. So there are some new portions of Schoology that our teachers are exploring, and you may experience a little bit of that with them as well. But you need to know that, as Mrs. Finter said, this year is different than last year. Many of you were able to kind of plow through and get all of your work done in 1 or 2 days. And some of you took, that time to spread out. We are going to be provisioning and planning for you for 5 days worth of learning. So it's not just going to be the 2 days that you're on campus for learning. You are going to be expected to engage with the activities and the learning all 5 days. So on Wednesdays, I talked a little bit about that mandatory synchronous opportunity in those peak groups. But on Wednesdays, there will be some students who also are required to report from 8 until 11. if you are one of those students, you would be receiving a letter to your home based on your level of instructional need and the supports that we have to offer through the high school. If you have any questions at all about what that looks like, you can always reach out to your school counselor. We do have 2 assistant principals who are working with us this year, Mrs. Nealon and Mr. Fleming. You can email them. And as always, as many of you have been doing already, you can continue to email me. We're happy to walk you through what that looks like. So pausing here for a quick second for EMCC. For those of you who have EMCC, if we take the example of a blue cohort student, so if you are a student with the last name that starts with an A, let's say an A, your last name starts with A, you're an Abbott, and you're going to go to EMCC. The second half of your schedule, period 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you have classes that you attend at IHS. Because you are a blue cohort student, you will only have to come to IHS, periods 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, on Monday and Thursday. On Tuesday and Friday, you won't report to your classes inside of the building, but you will report to door 3 to catch your bus that will take you to EMCC, where you will fulfill either the morning or the afternoon for your program. And then they will bring you back to the building. And at that point, you will go home. You won't return to the building. And the reason that we're doing that instead of, thanks Elijah, instead of doing that all in one day, it does help us from a safety perspective keep our mixing of cohorts and mixing of students more pure to the high school, as opposed to students going outside for programming and then engaging and interacting with students from multiple high schools and coming back to the high school. It just gives us that extra safety cushion for you to make sure that you are safe, we are safe, and you still get to benefit from that BOCES experience and EMC experience. You want me to pause for questions on hybrid, or should I keep rolling through and then we'll pause after the next couple slides?
So there were a couple of questions around, you know, just kind of the balance, and I think Ms. McLaughlin, you talked a bit about that you know, students are going to have to, whether it's for lab classes, you know, if you think about it, teachers are planning for those 5 days. Some of the onus is on the students to access those materials that might have, you know, in a normal setting or a normal, whatever the new normal is, school week might have been delivered in those 42-minute blocks. They're going to have to access outside of the classroom and participate in. You know, Ms. Quintero, I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but from your perspective as a classroom teacher, you know, is there anything that you might want to share with the students around how you might be thinking about, you know, putting that into play in some of your classes?
Sure, I can speak to that. So I've, for the last few weeks, really been thinking about what this might look like from a teacher perspective. And as I've balanced my lesson plans or thought about what I'll do on each day, I've asked myself on those 2 days I have students in front of me, what would be the best use of our time? And the best use of our time is not me watching you read an article or watching you watch a video. We could do that in the past. We had the luxury of 5 days, and occasionally that happened. But now it makes more sense for me to definitely push those to the asynchronous days when kids are home. And then when we come together, we can have creative and safe small group discussions or a large group discussion, or we can apply that material. We can take it to the next step that I really want to be there for. So in class, for me at least, and I think a lot of other teachers too, will be enrichment and extension and application, but we have to count on our students like we have in the past to do their homework. It's just that your homework maybe won't happen at nighttime. It's going to happen on the days you're not at school, when you're engaging with the material on Schoology and making sure you nail everything down. So it doesn't feel so different, but I know that teachers are being deliberate and thinking about what's the best use of face-to-face time.
Thanks.
Thank
Just
you.
one other question. I know there were some questions around EMCC and some of that, and I do think we covered that. In terms of some of the other classes that, you know, Irondequoit High School is an amazing place, as we all know and love, right? There's a comprehensive program available to students. And in our hybrid planning and remote planning, what we tried to do was to preserve that so that our rising seniors have access to those dual enrollment and AP level courses so that they can be well on their future path, whatever that may be. That our students who are looking at some of the applied sciences or trades can have those full experiences. So building trades, DDP, our Project Lead the Way courses, those courses are still being offered. We'll still have students in them, whether they're participating hybridly or full remotely. And we'll work with students and families and leveraging technology to be able to provide materials and resources to the best of our ability. And I know, Mr. Fullerton, do you want to speak quickly to, and again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know you and I have talked a bit about what some of those options might be for students, even on Wednesdays, you know, regarding DDP, for instance, or some of the Project Lead the Way classes.
Absolutely. We've been doing a lot with the teacher team there around technology. And as much as we've tried, we can't get Inventor to run reliably on the student devices. So some of our options include coming in on Wednesdays with the teacher supervision to get some extra time on the workstations that do run Inventor. We're also looking at some other options of ways to meet portions of the course requirements with online versions of CAD software. Autodesk also supplies licenses for free to any students for up to 1 year. So if you have a home computer that's a little more powerful, you can install Inventor, Tinkercad, the online version, or there are a couple other in-between versions of CAD software, all from the same company that align there. And the instructors in the DDP courses in the Project Lead the Way are looking at how to mesh all of that together. So continuing to work on that, but we're hoping to have some various options to help meet those requirements.
Thank you. I know there was also a question on there about music and how that works with the schedule. And so we're still running our A and B schedule. So if you have that in your schedule, we are working with Mr. Zugelder and the music department around what that is going to look like for instruction, but we also have some flex space that we're able to reduce those groups. So again, you are able to continue to pursue that love of music and still do it safely. We will share more information as we get closer to the opening of the year. I just want to pause for a moment. I know there are a couple of questions around arrival dismissal. If you are split between the 7:45 and the 8 o'clock, so freshman and junior, let's say, we're putting those two times as markers to try to split our numbers in about half so that we can get half of you through in the 15 minutes and the other half through in the next 15 minutes. With our instruction, you're headed straight to the classes with instruction starting shortly after. If you are split between two grade levels and you're dropped off, both of you, at 7:45, we certainly don't expect a junior or senior to wait outside. We're going to be able to accommodate you and get you processed through the building. I just ask that you stick as close to those times as you possibly can. If you don't have siblings and you're coming on your cohort days and during those times, so that we can most safely transition students from home in. The other question around that entry is about, great question, isn't offering masks for free to people dangerous? Well, no, because we have the disposable masks that are packaged. They have not been used before. And so as it's coming out of the package, it would be the first time that that mask had been accessed or touched and for you to use and dispose of at the end of your dismissal from campus.
Ms. McLaughlin, there was one other question. Why do upperclassmen have a shorter instructional day? And I don't think we've shared with them that classes won't run when people aren't in the building, right? So our
Correct.
first period will
Correct.
start at 8:15 and our ninth period will end at 2:45. So just because you come late or leave early, according to your grade level, doesn't mean you miss instruction.
Correct. That's correct. It's also a nice time for you just to, as you're coming in, make sure that you have the materials that you need for the day, get yourself settled. We certainly know that this year is going to bring anxiety and stress for everyone, adults and students. So it's just a nice time for you to kind of settle yourself and ground yourself and prepare and be focused on instruction for the day. And then again, kind of that same thing at the end of the day. It gives you that extra little bit of time just to prepare your mind for that transition between leaving school and entering the community or home, but also do a materials check. Just make sure you have everything that you need in order to be successful with your remote learning. So I'm going to ask that we forward the slide and we'll move into the remote learning portion. So if you are a student who selected full remote, meaning that you are going to do all of your learning from home, you are still going to be assigned a cohort. So based on your last name, you will still be assigned either a blue cohort or a gold cohort, indicating the days when you will virtually follow your schedule. So you're still going to be expected to get up, meet those timelines, transition from period to period. You will be teaming in, and I'll let Mr. Fullerton talk to that in just a second, what that process might look like for you. But that's the synchronous component. It means that you'll be learning along with the other cohort students who are sitting in that classroom. Your computer will be able to view the materials on the board. You'll be able to ask a question, but you may not necessarily have to synchronously be lock in step for the full 42 minutes for every single class. It will be highly dependent on those activities, kind of similar to what Mrs. Quintero described, that if everyone is doing an independent activity for the last 15 minutes to synthesize their learning, that may be an opportunity for you to do that and take a little screen break before getting back on for your next class. So based on your cohort days, you can see here an example. If you are blue, you'll be following your full schedule on Mondays and Thursdays, and you will be engaging in those remote activities that we've talked about virtually for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I almost got my cohorts mixed up. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. It is just the opposite for those gold cohort days, where you will be synchronously teaming into your classroom on Tuesdays and Fridays and remote learning on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So Mr. Fullerton, can you just talk briefly about what a student or parent might expect to learn more about in order to engage in that process?
Absolutely. So all of our students now have Teams licenses for Microsoft Teams, which you can get by going to teams.microsoft.com. And if your device was refreshed over the summer, it should have Teams pre-installed. Instructors will set up laptops in their classroom with the video camera pointing at the teacher and the board. So as they instruct, it's almost like a virtual student in the front of the classroom as you join a video conference sharing the information from the class for that piece of direct instruction. Now, after a few minutes, they may get to a point of working in small groups where the instructor might say, okay, for students who are in the remote model, now's the time for you guys to go do some work independently or in small groups with other students in remote instruction. But we'll use Microsoft Teams as an extra layer of privacy and security for our students and parents. Along with that, I know that's a new tool for many folks. We put together a website for parents and students to help with technology concerns. It's wicsd.tech. And we'll have that on our different district websites, in Schoology classes, things like that. That also includes help desk email, phone number for more support, as well as a lot of tutorials, videos, walkthroughs to help get you started with the technology piece of that.
Thank you, sir. Can we move to the next slide, please? So we've talked a little bit about this information. Also, I think the one piece just to highlight for folks is the full remote instruction deadline was this past Friday, where you are opting into full remote learning for 10 full weeks before we engage in a conversation to see if you're prepared to come back to in-person learning or continue on with that full remote option. Next slide, please. In considerations for both, attendance has to be recorded every single day. We are obligated to report that to New York State for any time that we have in-person instruction, which is every Monday through Friday. So it is incredibly important, again, that you are engaging both while you are synchronously learning, either on campus or at home, and again, while you are engaging in that remote learning. It will be important that you follow those attendance guidelines. Grading, we will talk about a bit further, but as said before, we do not have Hold Harmless this year, so you are expected to continue to engage. Your teachers will be giving you feedback as you go along the way. Please make sure that you are engaging and pushing yourself to improve your work. Our code of conduct still will be followed, so that will be coming out to families soon. If you have any questions about anything you see in the code of conduct, again, you can contact myself or either of the assistant principals, and we will have regular communication coming from not only your teachers, but also the APs and myself. I highly encourage you to make sure that you're engaging in Schoology, reaching out to your teachers with any questions or concerns you have in emails. We will also continue that grade level specific information in Schoology, and we'll give you those links as well. So we still have a little bit of time for questions and answers. So let's scroll up to the top and see how we're doing with answering some of those questions.
So there are some questions about, and I just want to remind everybody that's participating in this webinar that this is really meant to help get students' questions answered. And so some of the comments and some of the chat isn't really being very helpful and following the building's code of conduct. And so I would just encourage you to make sure that you're following the IHS community values while you're answering some of these questions for your classmates. So some questions around music in particular, music and band. I don't know, Mr. Fleming or Ms. McLaughlin, if you want to address those music class questions, how Wednesdays might be leveraged for virtual lessons, what some of the thinking around some of the class structures might be.
Sure. Sorry, I was just also trying to figure out how we could start removing those students so that the students who are on here that are really interested in hearing more and asking their questions get the attention that they deserve at this point. So that process is starting, so the rest of you are aware. Mr. Fleming, did you want to address that question?
Yeah, with regard to music, we are looking at different options with social distancing in the building to make sure that we're as comprehensive as possible moving into the fall, and making sure that students stay fresh with their instruments through remote and in-person venue.
Okay.
Then we've got some questions around, that first day of instruction. It's a Thursday, so that's a blue group day. What does the gold group do, and what are the expectations for them on that first day of school?
The first few days of school, we're actually going to spend some time splitting up lots of information that you need to know, but also the staff will have gone through before you arrive for everyone's safety. So the first couple of days, we're going to spend some time to make sure that everybody understands how to be safe in the building with proper mask wearing, with hand washing, any shared materials or shared spaces that folks are going to engage with, etc. And so as we are teaching that to you, it really is meant to be a time of teaching where we give you the why behind the importance of wearing a mask or engaging in these activities, including some videos that are not only supported with CDC, but some come from science backgrounds. And hope that that helps you feel more safe and can move through the environment focused on instruction.
A couple of questions around attendance guidelines for those days that are virtual. If you're not in the building, how do you take attendance? What does that look like? You don't have to sign in on those virtual days for our hybrid students. You don't have to sign in to every class period. There'll be one system that we'll utilize to take daily attendance on those days. And more information will be coming out to students and families about that. And certainly, just like in the springtime, one of the pieces of feedback we heard from students is that they really appreciated the time to develop their own schedules outside of school. If they wanted to chunk their work, and so, set a 5-hour block of time to work through some of their schoolwork and then give themselves a break, and then work a little later in the evening, they're able to do that. And so there'll be some opportunities to be able to work to set those schedules for yourselves, but teachers will be providing you some guidelines. What times do things need to be submitted by? What time do resources need to be accessed by? Those will be clearly communicated to you, but it'll still provide you with some what we call autonomy or independence for you to design your study hours. Ms. McLaughlin, Gavin's got a great question around the hybrid. How long are we thinking this? The entire year, or will we return to normal if it's safe to do so?
Absolutely, great question. If it is safe to do so, we will return slowly.
It's only the host.
Instead of moving too quickly, we are being super careful and thoughtful from not only from the building perspective, but from the district perspective. So the structures that we have with following that 9-period schedule intentionally set us up for a smooth transition if and when that opportunity occurs, but all of our decisions will be based on guidance from Monroe County Health and CDC and ultimately the governor of the state. I know there are a couple of questions here about orientation. So 9th graders will have a virtual orientation this year. We will not be in person. They do have videos, but also some breakout rooms. So in some of the really great ways that our upperclassmen have volunteered and are going to engage in training as part of the link crew, they will reach out to the 9th graders who are in their link crew for that orientation experience, so that you will have an upperclassman that you know before you step foot in the building and can go to as an additional resource throughout your transition into the high school. Again, those links will be sent to folks probably the day of, so that you have a personalized invitation to access for that. Advanced building trades, I think that goes along with some of the other courses that we talked about. We are still offering that. We will need to work with the teachers. Some of that information you can certainly learn asynchronously or remotely, but if there are pieces that we need to engage in on campus, we will work with those specific students in that class to access some of that time on our Wednesdays. Great question about water bottles. Our water fountains, the fountain part, will be covered. You can bring water bottles. We do have our fill stations that will be available through the building. And I know there's a question about taking your mask off in class to drink. And so we're going to talk through all of those protocols and safe procedures through those first couple of days of school. If you feel like your question isn't answered on that first day or two when you're in person, please email me and we'll make sure that we add that component on the following day. Question with prom and ball. Great questions. We have to wait and see how well we all take responsibility. I'll be honest, we all have to take personal responsibility for the health precautions and wearing our masks and washing our hands and keeping our social distance. And so that rippled across the state will help the governor further advise us and the health department on what we are able to increase with our gatherings.
So there was a couple of questions, one about lunch. So right now the cafeteria, as you described, is set up using those tables to be socially distanced and supporting. But you know, as the weeks go on, what spaces are used for lunch, and will students receive additional guidance for lunch? Principal McLaughlin.
I'm actually going to have Mr. Fleming talk about that. He's been leading that work and I appreciate his efforts. So Mr. Fleming, if you don't mind filling folks in.
Absolutely. We know that in a good normal situation, we would have blue key and gold key privileges for students to eat in the commons and the like. We just can't do that in the fall. So we're trying to preserve traditions in different ways. One of those ideas is for seniors to potentially be having lunch in the black box, the PAC, making that a senior space, periods 4, 5, and 6. And then we would have the option for juniors with blue keys to utilize the library as a dining area. And then for non-blue key juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, we would use social distancing in the small cafeteria and large cafeteria for all 3 of the lunch periods. So the idea here is to spread people out as much as possible and get folks that have privileges, their designated spaces that they've earned. And that is the plan as it's unfolding.
Thank you.
Yep, and a common question is around schedules. When will students receive that important information so they know when they have to log in or what classes they are assigned? Do you have any insights about that?
Yeah, so for our schedules, we are working diligently as that window closed for that full remote option. We did need to balance some of our section numbers to make sure that we still are keeping that smaller feel and not overwhelming one cohort over the other. So we are on course to share schedules as early as the week of August 24th, which is next week.
And I'd really like to thank the students that we've contacted over the past couple days with social distancing in mind to try to balance out gold day classes that are very big with sometimes blue day classes that are a little bit smaller. So thank you to everybody for their willingness to volunteer and be flexible with that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the individual who, I know I saw this one last night. Your granddaughter has a mentoring program where she's going in the morning with a kindergarten teacher. Can you please email me directly so we can talk through a little bit more about that scenario? I have a couple of questions and just want to get some more information. So I'll have you email me personally on that one. National Honor Society is still alive and well. Student government is alive and well. All of the clubs we're doing that, we are doing an audit right now to see which of those we can still run and how we will do that virtually to start. So I guess the short answer is anything that you were engaged with last year that was after school, if it is a meeting-esque, we will be able to offer that virtually to start with example, moving forward to be able to do more as we transition back on campus.
There's some questions around around study halls and around two things really, study halls and you know, just kind of what are some of the cleaning protocols that'll happen during the school day? You know, there's a question around handrails, doorknobs, those kinds of things. Maybe just to reiterate to the students what the process for that is.
Mr. Fleming, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, I was just responding to Dale's question. Could you say that one again?
Sure. So one question is about study halls. Are there still study halls in student schedules?
Short answer is yes. We're also looking to try to minimize study halls with filling in electives and other options so the students can have as comprehensive an experience as possible. But yes, there are some study halls still in the schedule.
Then the second question was about supplies, and so supply lists. And I know that there have been some conversations about those pretty recently as we're finalizing our remote learner list versus our in-person list. Are there any additional guidelines around school supplies?
Yep, that's a great question. For right now, I would stick with the traditional supply list, but know that everybody is aware of the unconventional situation that we're in. Teachers are going to be very flexible with you, especially the first couple weeks of school, to clearly communicate on a daily basis what is going to be needed. Some teachers might feel more comfortable after a couple days modifying what that is, but I would say stick with the current plan for the courses and what is being offered. And we'll adjust as needed.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Fleming. I think Mrs. Finter, you had said there were some questions about cleaning as well. And so, yes, we have a phenomenal group here who is making sure that we have the products that we need on site and that we have strict cleaning protocols that we're following and we're adhering to. So the products that we have on campus are all CDC approved. They do have varying levels of time that they are needed to interact with the surface and dry. So one of them is our 10-minute spray, which will be, it's got to be wet on a surface for 10 minutes and then it needs to be wiped clean. So that will be used every single night all the way through the building, even those, the crash bars, the handrails, the doorknobs, the bathrooms, anything that is a high touch surface will be cleaned. We will have the approved wipes and hand sanitizer in every single classroom and office. And then we're doing routine sweeps to use our 2-minute spray, which has to be wet for 2 minutes and then wiped down for those high contact areas multiple times throughout the day, with that 10-minute spray being used in the cafeteria. We do have a way to provision to split our groups so that no student leaving one lunch period will have to sit at a desk that hasn't been cleaned. We have enough time provisioned in so that those spaces are also cleaned in between. And I know looks like we're down to our last few minutes. If there are any other questions that folks saw that might encompass a couple.
There are a few questions about freshman orientation and freshmen getting to see the building before first day.
Yeah, thank you. So we are still holding an orientation that is going to be virtual. Your link crew leaders, your upperclassmen, will be sending you that information. Please make sure that you are holding September 2nd as the date for that opportunity. And those videos, one video for freshmen will be sent out fairly soon, I think in the next week or week and a half, just to kind of give you an overview of what's going to be covered and what you can expect during orientation, and a little bit of flavor around the spots in the building. And then we will send out an additional one that's much more comprehensive so that you know all of the entrance routines and can see what a classroom socially distanced might look like, and the cafeteria and those spots that folks have questions about.
You know, and so some questions have come up about if a student refuses to wear a mask. And so, you know, in the same way that we had to remind some fellow students around what is the appropriate behavior in a webinar like this to get their questions answered, you know, we'll be working to make sure that students understand the expectations and the grave importance of those expectations, and following, you know, all of the work that teachers normally do. You know, we teach, we try to inform, and we try to support, but if a student isn't meeting those expectations, then it's time to really rally the team around that student and find out why, work with families, work with parents, because maybe the in-person model then isn't for them if they're not willing to comply with those expectations. And then in terms of final question around locker, we you know, just want to minimize congregation points, and so you'll see that dismissal and arrival into classes is a little more fluid than it may have been in the past. You know, it won't be everybody leaving out the door at the same time. It won't be everybody coming in at the same time. Lockers right now we're not assigning. They'll potentially, you know, we'll kind of see what happens as the weather gets a little colder and the snow starts to fall. But right now, folks will be able to carry their backpacks. Heavy textbooks and things will be sent home with students, so they don't have to carry them around. And I know Mr. Zugelder in the music department is thinking about instrument placement and storage and access, so that way students can have those. You know, virtual lessons for music might be a reality too. We do have some of that time in Wednesdays, and I know that they're thinking about ways to keep kids involved in our phenomenal music program, so no one misses a beat, so to speak. So I think, you know, we're almost at the end of our time. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their wisdom and knowledge and support of our students coming back to instruction for the 2021 school year. If there are any other questions, I know Principal McLaughlin is so willing and able. Mr. Fleming, Ms. Nealon, also at Irondequoit High School, serving as APs as we start the year. They're there for you and will be able to answer questions. And I know all of your phenomenal teachers, like the lovely and wonderful Mrs. Quintero, who's here today, are there for you to answer questions. And certainly, you know, if you need some additional support, I'm here too. So thank you very much. I don't know, Principal McLaughlin, anything else you want to say as a send-off?
We miss seeing you terribly. We really are looking forward to seeing your faces. If there's anything at all you have questions about, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, folks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.